Good morning. Welcome to the Black Pill. Uh, hey, it's spring. I'm driving to work and it's light outside and there's enough light to record video. Let's do it. Tool around in the hearse and talk about stuff. Today the stuff is Randy Quaid, bees, neurology, and Twitter. Let's go. Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid trends about once a week on Twitter. This is the guy who played Cousin Eddie in the Vacation movies. Hey Clark, shitter's full. That guy. As far as I know, he doesn't really do anything else. He's just famous for being Cousin Eddie, and lately for being Randy Quaid, for being a far-right Republican troll, fan of fascist Donald Trump. And observing Randy Quaid trend about once a week on Twitter just solidified for me the idea that Twitter can't possibly be a good place. Is Twitter a place? A reasonable platform for engaging in any kind of meaningful dialogue. There are features to Twitter that make it exploitable, bad for dialogue. Let's walk through it. So, bees. Bees have very little brain power. A bee has very little brain power. The brain of a bee is less than 100,000th as powerful as the back of a human eye, the retina. A bee isn't smart, see? But bees collectively can make smart decisions. You get a bunch of bees together. I'll try and link a video about how animals think. It's a PBS thing with David Pogue, and I'll try and find the name of the scientist who figured all this stuff out. Bees periodically need to move. Their hive fills up and they make a new queen and they need to go off somewhere and populate a new place. They have a way of communicating about this. So some bees will go out and scout, right? And when they find something that looks suitable, they'll come back to the main hive. But they sort of internally have a way of rating how suitable a thing is, like how big is the opening, how far away is it, in what direction, are there resources nearby, is it big enough, whatever criteria. So a couple of bees go out and a couple of bees find some possibilities. They come back and they do a waggle dance where they shake their body a number of times that corresponds to how great the option is. And they point in a particular direction. And there might be another bee doing the same thing, pointing in a different direction with a different strength. Right? And then the hive, the other bees, observe the dance and make a collective decision, and they tend to all go in the direction of the best option. Not always, but that would be the central tendency. But another thing that happens is you have these competing waggle dances going on, and sometimes the bee with the better option sees that there's another bee trying to send send bees after a worse option. I'm shaking 3 times, you're shaking 2 times, and they go, or they send delegates to go and interrupt that other waggle dance. So one bee will ram into the other dancing bee and make a little noise like meep. It's kind of adorable, actually. And meep. And they'll do that until the bee with the inferior option stops dancing. This is a lot like human neural networks. One individual bee barely has a brain at all. But a bunch of bees together seem to emulate a human brain. So you have an idea. Maybe you think I should get a Cadillac. I should get a hearse. And some neurons in your brain that signify hearses fire, and that's the idea that's in your head. Neurons that fire together wire together. When those neurons fire, you see a hearse. When you see a hearse, those neurons fire, and that's what's firing right now. Hearse, 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 hearse. But if you think you should get a hearse, then there's probably part of your brain that thinks that's not a good idea, and you should get something normal like a Mini, right? So part of your brain instead is going Mini, 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 hearse, Mini, hearse, Mini, hearse, Mini. That's perfectly ordinary. You've been in two minds about a thing. But the neural networks signifying hearse will send out chemicals to subvert the process that causes the networks for Mini to fire. And the networks for Mini send out chemicals to subvert the process causing hearse to fire. So it's not only which idea is stronger, which idea brightens your mind the most. It's which idea can undermine the other idea sufficiently. Is it more complicated than that? Yes, absolutely. Of course it is. And good ideas tend to be strengthened with logic, with morals, consistency, peer support, other support, stereotypes when things play to type, and etc. But there's this process, and bees do it and Twitter does it. So when Donald Trump was allowed on Twitter, he had hundreds of millions of followers on Twitter. But the majority of those followers weren't real people. They were bots and sock puppets, and they were fake. They weren't real people. Sometimes there was a real person and they were behind like a whole mess of those accounts. And sometimes they were just automatic bots that whatever Trump said they would retweet. They'd re-spam out into public. And what that does is there's a bad idea, you know? We should go live in this soggy, wet hole under a power line where there are badgers. That's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Muslims celebrated after 9/11. That's a bad idea. It's stupid, fallacious, didn't happen, racist. But some neurons are firing. They're firing when you hear that or read that. But then there are all these bots retweeting it or defending it or creating confusion about what was actually said. You know, hundreds of thousands of them. And when you're in that part of Twitter, that's what you see. So you take a bad idea and strengthen it and strengthen it and strengthen it. And then at the same time, whenever someone expresses a liberal ideal, you troll them. The right is masterful at trolling people off of Twitter. During the Trump years, if I went on Twitter and typed in something really innocuous, like America is a democracy, it'd be inside of an hour before I started getting replies from trolls and bots and sock puppets and griefers that America's not a democracy, it's a republic. And so you have this neurological process where ideas compete in the marketplace of ideas, but Twitter enables a certain kind of competition where the most ruthless party, rather than the person with the best idea, eventually over time is going to win out. not by having the best idea that is fundamentally the strongest, with the best real support, but by amplifying it artificially and by subverting the competition. And this, in fact, is how Randy Quaid trends once a week. It's usually not right-wing people saying Randy Quaid and Scott Baio are wonderful human beings and the world's greatest actors. It's usually left-wingers negging those guys. You know, the only celebrities that Donald Trump can get to support him are Randy Quaid and Scott Baio and that kind of thing. Both sides do it. One side does it a lot more and a lot more masterfully, and in support of worse ideas. So sometimes stuff will trend, and it's real Nazi apologetics. You know, it's some Nazi idea, and it's got a new name slapped on it and a brand new shiny hashtag to get that idea floating around. And some of the left-wing activists will come in and associate it with like drag queens and gay porn and stuff like that, to make that idea, to make that hashtag unusable and sort of prevent that particular neural network from forming at that particular time. And the red team does it back, and there's this whole war about which ideas are allowed to present. And I would just ask this question of people. I mean, I do almost every day. Is that okay with you? You know, is that a good way to have political discourse? It's the way we have, yes, sure, I hear you. But is it a good way? Is it all right with you that we've been put in this position where we make our political decisions on these sorts of bases, where there's not a truth? There are artificially enhanced neural networks for bad ideas and artificial means of subverting the good ideas, or subverting alternatives. Is that okay? Is it okay with you that we make our political decisions on which candidate disgusts us the least, or which candidate is better at weaponizing our disgust? Is that all right with you? And for all of these reasons, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of it are just really terrible places for having political discourse. Probably at this stage in our history, bad for democracy. Black Bill out.